Shorty. Getting ready for life. Come on.
This will even be good for you because specifically going to be talking about my book. I just sent the link. What's up? Something. Won't do anything.
Yes, I'm muted. You guys are not going live yet, right?
Yeah.
What's going on? You
I'm
guys are
not
not going
sure.
live yet, right?
Yeah.
What's going on? You
I'm
guys are
not
not
sure.
going live yet, right? What's you guys are not going live yet, right?
Let me see.
Hello, welcome to TouchPoint with Tayo on Jambo Radio, the show where everything matters. Wow, wow. I am your host, Tayo Oweye. And guess where we are broadcasting from? We're broadcasting right from Africa. We're right in Nigeria at the moment. And it's just going to be a wonderful time on the show today. And at Touchpoint, we explore vital issues that concerns Africans and Africans in diaspora. We examine issues of concern to lifestyle and living of people. And we also address trendy issues about Africans and Africans in its entirety. And today on Touchpoint with Tayo, as you know, we started a journey last week, and this week we're continuing on that journey. We are breaking boundaries. And this week we are simply going to look at insights into the journey of a third culture child. And we continue that journey with Blessing Adogame. You met her last week, but just for the purpose of those who never knew her, Blessing is joining me live from England. I'm live from Nigeria, and we are on the platform of Jambo Radio in the heart of Glasgow. Wow, Blessing, how are you doing today? What? I can hear. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was saying it wasn't planned, but it's like we're matching with our white shirts.
I mean, oh, wow, it wasn't planned. Oh, wow, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Let me introduce Blessing. Blessing Adogame has been involved in education and technology. She's a student and she's also a professional. And she's a global speaker. She has spoken at United Nations, quite a number of global platforms in which she had also spoken. And she's also an author. I mean, you can say this: bound to be boundless. The journey of a third culture child. If you've not gotten your copy, I have mine. You can borrow it. Go get it from Amazon. It's just right there. And today we just want to delve right into the issue of a third culture child. She had explained what a third culture child is, but probably for the purpose of our viewers, she will just briefly give us that insight. And for those who are joining us, I mean, if you're airing us on our app, you can also watch it on Jambo Radio YouTube platform on Jambo Radio Scotland, Facebook Jambo Radio Scotland, and Twitter, which is X. You can join us on Jambo Radio.scot. And on Instagram, we are at Jambo Radio Scotland. You can email us, info at jamboradio.co.uk. Send us a comment. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear your contribution. Let's get the ball rolling. So, Blessing, it's so nice to see you
Yes.
today. Because we have a lot of things to discuss, I've read this book, and I've not finished it, but the little which I've read, let's get into it.
Perfect.
So there was an example, there was an experience in which I read from this book, which was on page 21. How has the experience of being called a Black Nancy helped you build a resilient spirit? And how has it made your growing in the bilingual become a unique journey?
That's a good question. I remember that it was a a tough thing. I was not
Okay, so, what's it called? Okay.
as
Okay, I think we're having some issues. Okay, so I think she's back. I think we're having some issues with our connections here. Okay.
one.
So, audience, viewers, please just give us some few minutes as we wrap up the internet connection.
So
Okay.
I don't know as
Hello, blessing.
someone Nigerian.
Okay. Hello, blessing. Hi, blessing. Okay. Okay, as blessing gets back into the room, will be okay. I think she's
Ignorant.
so as blessing gets back into the room, and as the connection also gets back, so we're asking about an experience that Blessing had during her schooling after she moved from Germany down to Scotland, and she was being called the Black Nancy. But that particular experience also had been quite pivotal in her life. A blessing.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, yes. So, yes, yes, I can hear you, blessing. Okay, while we wait for her, just some things that um, are also quite good for you to know was we gave this activity last week to know whether you are living bound or you are living boundless. And just for those who never joined us last week, you may want to type this into the chat and let's see whether you are living bound or you are living boundless. We said last week that if you have an appointment by 5 p.m. and you set your travel time scheduled to arrive by, what time would you set your travel time to arrive by? I mean, if it is 4:45, we'd like to know, and if it is 5 p.m., we also like uh, to know. But if you are arriving there at 5 p.m., you probably are living bounds. But if you arrive at 4:45, yeah, you are living boundless. Blessing, are you there?
I am back. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry,
Sorry.
my internet
Okay.
cut off.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. We can hear you. I was asking the question about your experience of being called a Black Nancy in your school days, and how has that
Mhm.
helped build resilience in you, and how has it also made your growing in the bilingual journey become so unique?
Yeah, is a good question. And before I cut off, I was saying that it was an interesting thing or an interesting label to have at such a young age. I just couldn't understand how, well, frankly, people could be so ignorant because they see a black person that speaks German. They just put two and two together and now are calling them a black Nazi. But to be honest, I think it helped build resilience in the sense that I knew I wasn't that. And the thing about labels and when people put labels on you is that you have the opportunity to reject it or accept it. And so I knew I wasn't a black Nazi. I knew my background. So I think the resilience was built through me knowing who I and finding, I guess, pride in that. Okay, I'm black, I'm Nigerian, but I can also speak German,
Mm,
and not many people have that, I guess, that skill. And so it made me, I guess, try to be a bit more firm in this whole growing up bilingual and knowing that, yes, people label me as different things based on their lack of knowledge, but then also their ignorance. And it's my choice whether I want to accept it or not.
wow, wow, wow. So, but in terms of this particular experience, did it at first really had any effect on you?
It did. Not even just this one, because I think I had somewhat of a similar one when I was in Germany. Um, and I believe I wrote it in my book, where I was at school once and I ran back from school crying to my dad or just crying home because people were saying that I had chocolate skin and that my skin was ugly. Of course, if you're living in where we lived in Germany, predominantly white, very small town, I was one of few, if not the only black person in my like kindergarten and school, me and my sister. And so I remember running back home crying because it was like people were saying that my skin is dirty. And I remember my dad
Wow.
would be saying that, no, when people tell you that, say that, no, black is beautiful, that you don't have to, like, yes, you're young, but you don't have to take what they say. And I think it's one of those similar experiences I faced in Scotland when I moved there and people were saying this and that. It was like it was tough. Of course, when you're so young, it's like you almost believe anything that's said to you because you're young and you have so much to learn. But I think in time I also had to unlearn those things pretty quickly. Otherwise it would have almost been to my detriment if I believed what people were saying about me.
There was this other experience which I read in page 26 of your work, and I wrote here there's a popular saying about silence being golden. But you said in your book is that, but said despite your intelligence, or you said your silence wouldn't get you very far. How does that
Mm.
statement? How did it? I mean, silence is golden, but you're not
Yeah.
saying that silence won't get you very far.
Yeah. is one of those things that, yeah, I remember growing up, especially in primary school in Scotland. I was very just focused on my academics. I was one of those students that would get A's. People wouldn't even be surprised to get different awards and things like that. But it was an incident where my head teacher, I think, she said that, yeah, blessing. I mean, you're great and all, but you're almost too quiet. Like if you once you go and once you go beyond, if you're quiet in the way that you're quiet, it will only get you so far. And at that point I didn't quite understand what it meant, because I'm like, so I should now be rowdy, I should now, I just didn't understand. But now I understand it in the sense that, and I say it now as well when I speak to students, is that, yeah, you can be the best at what you do, but at the end of the day, if people don't know you, if people don't know what you do, then there's only you, because you're in bubble. And so at that point, I learned that, okay, yes, get the good grades and all of that stuff, but let people like talk, raise your hand in class, like let people know about you. But I think it also relates to how I grew up, and with moving and everything, I just became very quiet. And so I just thought, well, let me put my head down and just get through what I need to get through.
Yes. Does this only apply to schoolwork? I mean, what of professional life? Do we also have to keep quiet, or is there a balance in keeping quiet at being a professional and speaking up too?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a balance, because again, if you're thinking about opportunities, if you're thinking about promotion, yes, you can do all the work that you know as a professional. Your manager doesn't know you, the organization, it's just like, I just think that there's only so much you can do, and there's only so far you can go without the help of others. And the help of others is introduced when people know about you and how they can even help you and how they can support you. But I think there's a fine line, or a balance between boasting and letting people know all the intricate details of your life, versus, okay, still being diligent in your work, but then knowing what to share with the public or what to share with your colleagues and your wider organization.
No, wow, wow, wow. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, someone is learning something from that, that yes, we can have silence being golden, and silence may not get you very far. I mean, balancing it, golden and moving far. Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
the issue of speaking up in a workplace, in your school, it seems to be a strategy to be part of the. I mean, Patron T talks about you having been part of the class disruptors or the clowns, really being helpful.
Yeah.
But what is the challenge of fitting into a group that made it wrong for you? How did it influence your person?
Hmm. Um, well, I think the last question that you just asked answers the question, because it influenced me as a person. It influenced me as a person so much to the point that, well, going into this pursuit of fitting in, I didn't know who I was. And so it made me, it made the environment that I was trying to fit into basically dictate and define who I would become, rather me knowing who I was before trying to fit into a group. And I think whether it's a friendship group, whether it's a class, whether it's a new environment, if you don't know who you are before entering those spaces, then,
Yeah.
well, you'll be swayed whichever way that environment takes you. And so that's what happened to me. I was still in in the pursuit of figuring out who I was, and so I became, I guess, friends with the class disruptors and clowns. And so I said, well, if I'm in this group, then I might as well become one of them. And yeah, it didn't end too well.
Well, so what happened?
Well, my teachers had things to say, and to be honest, I felt like I was becoming a very nice person. I was talking back to teachers. I was disrupting class. I was talking while class was going on. I said, "Yay, this is not me." And I went from being very quiet to the complete opposite. And I
Wow.
learned that you can find a sweet spot in the middle. It doesn't have to be 0 to 100, black to white.
I mean, that is something that I can see. Also, uh, someone saying, know who you are. Good. I really
Yeah.
love that. But before we go on break, how do you think a person can navigate to assimilate to a culture? I mean, in on page 29, you talked about your assimilation into the culture. I mean, how do you think a person can navigate to assimilate to a culture when you said trying to assimilate to the culture led me to falling into the wrong crowd?
Hmm. I mean, I think the first part is what I just spoke about knowing who you are, because that will help you play in the right way because you're grounded in who you are, where you come from. But then the second thing I would say is also not neglecting where you come from. Like just because you're assimilating to a new culture doesn't mean that you leave behind the culture that you migrated from. It's actually kind of beautiful when you can different cultures and almost create a new culture that yes, I'm Nigerian, but I'm living in that in itself. Being Nigerian, Scottish, or being a Nigerian living in Scotland is a new culture. Like it's just a new experience that you learn. And so I think it's important that yes, when you are assimilating to a new culture, um, you are you are open, but you're not too wide, basically. So wisdom in the choices that you make on do I do this, do I do that, but you're also curious enough to explore this new culture that you're in. So I think honestly it's really just finding that balance of how can I be part of this community or part of this culture but not of it.
Thank you for that. I mean, while you're saying that, that's it is all. I mean, I'm just hearing in my mind. It is all about balancing. The whole thing is
Hmm.
holding on to this and don't let go of the other. Don't be too wise and don't be too foolish.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that part. I love that part a lot. So as we go, but we'll be going on break right now. But before we go on break, there was this quote that Blessing made mention of in our book, and says, "When you don't know who you are internally, you will accept everything and anything from the outside." We'll be going outside of the room for now, just for an advert, and we'll be back in a while. Thank you. Stay tuned. Shoulder, sir. Hold on, Dada. Mo fẹ́ sọ pé wá kí o kó sọ̀rọ̀ straight láti ilé. Okay, we are welcome back into from the break, and we're still on TouchPoint with Tayo on Jambo Radio, Scotland, and we are transmitting from Africa, from UK, and thanks for joining us on this. And I'm still with Blessing Adogame, discussing breaking boundaries. We're having insights into our journey as a taught cultured kid. If you have questions, if you have comments, please let's read your comments. Let's have your questions as we delve more into the issue of being a third culture kid. So, blessing for someone who don't
Yeah,
have an understanding of what a third culture kid is, can you just give a brief idea about this? Someone is out there asking.
of course, of course. So a third culture kid is someone, of course, it doesn't just have to be a child, but is someone who has grown up in either one or multiple cultures outside of the culture that their parents are from. So in this case, um, because my parents are from Nigeria, but I lived majority of my life in Germany and in Scotland and in the US. I consider myself a third culture kid because of that. So, yeah, ultimately, a third culture kid is if your parents are born or raised in one country and you are raised in other countries outside of that country, then you could consider yourself as a third culture kid.
So someone who is raised in just, I mean, like yours is like in three countries. Someone who is, because someone who is raised in just only one country called say that I'm a first culture adult or kid, or two countries, or we should just adopt that concept for anyone who is uh, who their parents hail from a particular place, but experienced one or two or more cultures.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So, listen, there is this popular film, movie in the 90s that is called Coming to America. And I met Coming to America in your book. Can you share how Coming to America came to be? I mean, I read, despite with one-way ticket to the land of opportunities, you still lost touch with life. Coming to America, what
Mm,
is it all about?
yes. Well, honestly, I loved writing about that whole experience, and it was the idea that I came to America from what, to be honest, yeah, I deemed as my home. And as much as my peers back in Scotland and different family friends and everything would kind of hail us for moving to America, the land of opportunities, like as if life is supposed to be perfect, I couldn't see it that way, especially in that first year. And so I would say that that's how I lost touch with life because, and I think I mentioned it in the last segment last week that I was in America physically, but wasn't there. And
Yeah.
not just about America, but you can say that for many other opportunities or situations that you're in, that if you're in a situation or if you're in an opportunity physically but not mentally, you're losing out on the things that you can learn and experience from that. And so, yeah, I didn't see my coming to America as this exciting thing, even, in the movie, how it's just such a grand and everything like that, and everything looks so big because I didn't want to move to America in the first place. I saw everything from the lens of being a victim.
So, can you on page 33, you you discussed about your first year in America, which was also your last year in high school. How has it changed and challenged
Yeah.
your perspective?
Whew. This one was difficult. it was very difficult, and I'll give a few examples that will hopefully solidify the statement or give you some understanding into it. So in America, you have 4 years of high school, and in those 4 years, you take a set number of courses that lead or that become your graduation requirements. And one of those courses being biology that usually you take in your first year. There are also US history, two US history courses, world history courses that you take in your first and in your second year. Because I only did 1 year of high school in the United States, I had to take all of these classes that, to be honest, I deemed quite unnecessary. Especially
Wow.
I was planning to, um, you know, prepare to do computer science at university. So I said, why do I need to learn about US history and biology? Like, I need courses that will help with my college application. And so yeah, I found myself, instead of the three US and world history classes that normal students will take every single year for 3 years, I had to take all three of them in 1 year.
Wow.
And I said it was automation. I'm already learning about America in the present tense, and now I have to learn about America in the past
In the
tense.
past tense.
And then biology as well, and just different courses like that. So it almost didn't make sense. I felt like coming to America and doing my last year in high school, I felt like I was moving backwards, because I said, I'm in my last year of high school. Why am I doing these courses
Yeah.
that my brother, who is in his first year of high school, is doing? And it just felt like I was going backwards, and it just made me very quiet. One more example that I'll give is that by the time that you're in your junior year of high school in the US, you're already looking at colleges. You're already starting to prepare for your SATs and make sure that your GPA is at a good place. I had 2 months to work on my college applications to seemingly have a decent enough GPA so that I could apply to colleges. Um, when I mean, my peers had at least 2 years to start that process. And so there were too many things that were cramped into just 1 year, even less than a year. And it took a toll on me, both education wise,
Wow.
spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It was a lot to carry for that first year. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. 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 Um, before I go back, or probably let me hold on to that question first and say more like an advice to someone who is out there dreaming of going back to a place but stuck to another place. What would you
Mm.
advise someone who's stuck in a place but dream of a past life? I mean, dream of the whole
Mm.
life. What would you advise someone to do at that point?
Hmm.
Because you've
That's a
been
good
there.
question. Yeah, exactly. I mean, on one hand, I definitely think it takes self-awareness, because sometimes when you're in when you're in X place, you don't know that you're dreaming of this past life and the what ifs of your past life, until you're in a new situation and you're like, hey, I keep thinking about this place. I wish I could go back. I wish. So on one hand, it takes self-awareness to, when you're in that situation, being like, okay, what is it about this place, or this place that I want to be back at, that I actually miss? Is it the place itself? Is it the people? Is it the food? Like, being able to know that helps you then tackle where you are now. If it's the people, okay, how can I make sure I'm still in contact with, in my case at that time, how can I make sure I'm still in contact with my friends in Scotland? If it's the foods, where can I go? What shop can I go to um, find, food home, that kind of stuff. I think it's more of a mental thing than anything, and it takes time to almost unlearn the fact that you can't have a good life if you're not in this place. Because if you always have that mindset of I need to be in X place to be successful, or if I need to be in X place to have a good life or to enjoy life, then you can go, it will take you anywhere and you'll be miserable because everything physically, mentally, you just want to be back there. But life can be funny sometimes, and for different reasons, you might have to move to even just another city. We're not even talking about countries or continents at this point, where it can be as little as another city, and you will not be able to bloom where you're planted because your roots are too. It's even started to get weeds that the place that you came from, like everything is there, and you can't start a new life somewhere else.
Wow, wow. What was also ringing in my mind and my head was stop wishing and
Yeah.
don't wish again for the past. Start being willing. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing for the future. Yeah. So if you're out there and still
Exactly.
wishing for the past is gone. All you have is now. Take the moment of the now. Yes. Let's take a question. A family is asking, when you set goals for yourself, I mean, Faith Adogame is asking, when you set goals for yourself, how do you bring the bound to be boundless mindset into
Hmm.
it?
That's a great question. And it for me, it actually very early started on started by me not even calling them goals, because in my mind when I think goals, I think it's these big things that are seemingly unattainable, and it puts a lot of pressure on me. So I remember when I would write down my monthly or my weekly things, I wouldn't call them goals, but I would call them priorities. And so it makes sure that I'm prioritizing it, so that I'm it's basically just reframing it. And so that was the first step of me going from being bound to being boundless, because when I have goals, there's something in my mind that is already telling me that this is too big, or you'll take this goal from 1 month to the next. But when I say priorities, it's like, okay, what are you prioritizing this month? What are you prioritizing this year? And I think that's the first step in helping you to just change that narrative in your mind. And from there you can be like, okay, this is my main priority, or these are my top three priorities. What are tasks now that I can do to help me reach that priority, or to help me just prioritize that in general. And I think when it
Wow.
comes to goals, it's they talk about having smart goals, right? Goals that are, hey, I can't even remember the acronym: measurable,
Smart
attainable,
goals,
the yeah,
specific, measurable,
mhm,
attainable,
yeah,
realizable, and
I think so.
timely.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
timely,
yes.
timely, exactly, perfect. So then, yeah, also making sure that your goals kind of adhere to that. The thing for me is that very early on, I set a lot of goals. I would have documents and documents and documents about, okay, this year I'm going to do this. These are my sub tasks. These are my sub goals. And I would just find that it would just become too much. So I actually had to scale it down. And I think that's where you go from being boundless, because you realize that, yes, as much as you see it online that people have all these huge like systems of how they're reaching their goals and all of that stuff, I realize that that actually doesn't work for me. And that's another mindset shift that a boundless person will take, that yes, this might work for someone else, but for me, let me scale it down. I don't need to have 50 goals to accomplish in a year. I can have two or three priorities that by the end of the year, I can make sure that, okay, I actually was able to prioritize this, and that's it. And that's good enough.
So, yes, you can score goals, but prioritize your goals. That's it. That is what
Yes.
I'm hearing. So priorities are much more effective, and because a goal can be, I mean, a game can be goalless. So,
Yeah.
but prioritize. Let's go. Some parents are out there thinking about how did Blessing's parents handle all of this school issue, everything issue. I mean, and then on page 70, you talked about that call from your dad about the good news to him,
Yeah.
but was
Yeah.
neither good nor bad for you.
Right.
How did the issue of perception and perspective emerge from it?
Yeah, I remember this scene vividly, because I was in class with my friends, or we were in our tutor group, and we are studying for an exam coming up. And I got the call, and I just looked at my friends and I said, "Guys, I think I'm moving to New Jersey." And we were stunned. And yeah, as you said, like I didn't really know where to place my feelings, because yes, I was happy for my dad. It was great accomplishment, huge milestone. But then I'm like, on the other end, I'm here about to leave my friends, about to leave school and everything like that. Um, but I think the one thing that I learned, or the one thing that emerged from it, is that two two things can be true at the same time. I can be happy for my dad, but I can also feel sad because yeah, is a huge move. 10 years of my life and I'm changing. But then at the end of the day, it was also a huge move for my dad. And so it's one of those things that I had to learn that okay, let me not press down or suppress how I feel, because it's valid, you know, but I can also have the capacity to celebrate this accomplishment with my dad whilst owning my feelings towards it. Of course, I'm still happy, but the reality of it is that yes, I knew that I would miss my friends. I knew that if this call came through and if this position came through for my dad, then it will be another huge bridge to cross. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Wow, wow. Well, I know Dad is a professor in at
Yeah.
Princeton, but I've experienced him, and I'll probably ask you this question, which I also asked him privately: is how has it been that you raised such beautiful and future, I mean, future focused children? How was
Mm,
parenting? How was it? How did it go with you at home with dad and mom?
yeah. It was an interesting experience. I think if anything, more from when we traveled from, or when we moved from Scotland to the US, because we were old enough as the children, we were old enough now to understand what was happening. I mean, it was a fun process of uh, picking our room colors and doing research about, oh, you can do this in New Jersey and do that, and kind of anticipate new memories that we would build. Um, I think one thing I learned is that my mom and dad are still both learning as well. And so when I look back, I used to think that, "Oh, I wish they would have sat down with me and my siblings and been like, guys, this is what's about to happen. It's not going to be easy. It may not be easy. You may face that, but we're here to support you." Um, and to be frank, we didn't quite get that. And it's one thing that I also hope that my book helps parents, because you might think that your children are too young to quite understand that they're moving from one place to another, but we see a lot of things. And so, even if you think that they don't understand, sit them down before a big move, whether it's from one city to another, one country, or one continent to another. Sit them down and be like, kids, we're about to make this big move. You're gonna have to make new friends. You're gonna have to do this and that. And yes, you might miss home and all of that stuff. But let's like this is how we'll go home maybe once a year so you don't miss it too much. This is how you can stay in touch with your friends. Just that kind of like talking support. Um, I say this not to say that my parents were not supportive at all. They were, and the sacrifices they made also, I guess, empowered me and my siblings to also make sacrifices. But generally, I think also speaking to other third culture kids is almost like an unspoken thing. I don't know if it's just an African household kind of thing, but it's just you just move and you don't really talk about it. You don't really have conversations about it. But later on in life, you realize that I'm feeling this way because when I moved from this place to another, my parents didn't really tell me what to expect. And so I think it's important that parents make a point and prioritize telling their kids, no matter how young they are, because there's a lot that we see, especially moving from one place to another from such a young age.
Wow, wow. Let's quickly talk because we're also about to wrap up. Let's talk about you talked on page 40 about being free but still bound. And during the start of
Yeah.
this Breaking Boundaries series, Faith Syndic, remember she was the first guest to start this series, said freedom can be intoxicating. How have you managed freedom?
Good question. Um, I mean, freedom in every sense of the word. I don't want to use the word to define the word, but you generally feel free. You feel like you can move. You feel like you have space both mentally and physically, and different things like that. But I think it's one of those things where, and I understand why Faith said it, because yes, when you have so much freedom, when you have so much space and so much room, in a way you can feel still bound, because it's like there's so much, and you kind of need that structure, but without that structure it can be very difficult to know where you fit in if there's so much space to move around. And so the title of that chapter that I wrote about free but still bound was the idea that you can be free in different ways, but your mindset can keep you bound as well. You can be free in the sense that you are living in a free country, but the way you think still keeps you bound. You can be free in the sense that you are at university and you have a full scholarship, so you don't have to think about finance, but you're still bound because you're not taking classes seriously. There's so many ways that we are free, but we're still bound in our minds.
Wow, wow, wow! That's so powerful. You can be free and still be bound in your mind. You can be set free and the prison doors are open, but yet you refuse to leave that prison
Yeah,
doors. Yeah, wow, wonderful.
exactly.
If someone is out there, you're free but bound. Check your mindset. Check your mindset. And listen, I have just some few things for you. I have about two things for you to do. But before that, how has your faith transformed during this life's journey? Just briefly, how has your faith? Because you made mention about faith, then how has it transformed during the life journey?
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, but I talked about how I dealt with identity crisis. And so, moving from place to place, I tried to find my identity in a lot of different things. Whether it's, as I said, community groups, whether it's the music that I listen to, whether it's just so many different things. But by the time I moved to the US, I gave up. I couldn't, it's like everything that I tried just wasn't working anymore. And so I realized that I have always been a child of God. and that is the identity, being a citizen of heaven, not only a citizen of Nigeria or the UK or the US, but a citizen of heaven. That will never change,
Wow.
no matter where I live. And so I would say that my faith transformed my life's journey in the sense that it gave me a foundation that cannot move me, no matter how many times I move. And I think that was the biggest thing that got me through the most difficult times of that journey so far.
Things can move, but I can become unmovable. Yeah. Yes, I
Yes.
love that. I love that. I love that. And just quickly, so that I don't disenfranchise someone who is online, Bamibola Didamola asked, you can just, within some few seconds, how can you achieve long-term goals without obstruction?
I would say, very briefly, it's not bad to have long term goals, but I think the path to reach those long term goals can always change. Your long term goal can be goal A, but then it takes you from 1 to 3 to 74 to 78 to 100 to reach A. And so don't when you're thinking about long term goals, don't always have such a rigid plan on how you can reach there, because life changes. There are different paths to get to the same destination, and so as much as you have this long-term goal, also be open to how, like, the process, and not just the outcome.
So, as we wrap up, Blessing, which part of this book do you love most? I know you love every part of it, but which chapter resonates?
um which chapter? I would say, honestly, probably Free But Still Bound. I think that one, I not only enjoyed writing, but it was also one of those experiences personally that was the most eye-opening, because I would think that there's just so many things. I feel like I'm free, like I have all these opportunities, but in my mind I'm like, I'm still limited. So it was one of those chapters that it took a lot for me to get through it, just personally, but to write it and to be able to break down different ways that people see themselves as free, but idealistically they're actually still bound in their mind. And so it was one of
Wow.
those chapters that is a challenge. It was a challenge for myself, and I hope it challenges others well to just question, interrogate themselves, and make sure that they are as free as they think they are, or as they say they are.
Yeah. So, the parting shots for today. Which quote will you share with our audience today? Something
Yes, I
that
have
will
one.
have an imprint into the heart. Okay.
I have one this time, and I think it's quite applicable to everything that we've spoken about so far. And the quote is, and people might have heard it before. So, the grass is greener where you water it. And I think that goes back
Think.
to what we are saying about past life and everything. But yes, I can move to the US and think that the grass is greener in Scotland. But I had to learn that, well, the grass can also be greener in the US. I just have to water it. And so it's that idea that look at where you are, not where you've necessarily come from or where you want to go, but make
Yeah.
sure that in your current state or in your current situation, you're watering the
Yeah.
grass so that it's flourishing, so that you're flourishing, and the next place you go, you'll flourish as you water it as well, and that you keep going that way.
Thank you so much, Blessing. But let me tell you what mine. The principle of perspective is best practiced by challenging assumptions and questioning standard. The grass is
Mm.
greener when you water, but also the principle of is best practiced by challenging assumptions and questioning standard. I think we all need that. And at this point, thank you, Blessing, for wrapping up this wonderful uh, 2 weeks journey that we've had together. Thank you, all our viewers.
and all the boundless people living in the world, young and both old, adults. Thank you for joining us. This has been a mind shift series. Thank you to my TouchPoint team and production crew back in the UK. TouchPoint's backroom team, thank you. All the way wherever you are, both Africa and back in the UK. Listeners and audience, thank you so much. That's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Until next week, remember, life's journey unfolds uniquely. Run your race to attract grace, for it is only within the race that grace finds its way. I've been your host, Tayo Oweye. Join me next week for another exciting episode of Breaking Boundaries on Touchpoint with Tayo. Until then, I wish you a happy night rest and good night.